everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Detroit Bad Boys podcast. I am your host, Lazarus Jackson, pleased, as always, to be joined by my usual triumphant co-host, Ben Gulker. Ben, how are you?
Laz, I'm doing good, man. I tweeted yesterday that I felt like yesterday's Big Ten championship football game was probably the biggest sporting event to me personally. Since social media became a thing, I realized the Michigan Wolverines basketball team has had a couple bites at the apple, but I don't know, man. I've always been more invested in the football team for whatever reason, even though I never played football. I was always a basketball player. And wow, what a season it's been. It's just been a lot of fun.
No, absolutely. I was struck by how woefully under-equipped Iowa was to compete with Michigan in any stage of the game as I was watching that game. And the blocked punt is like when people were joking about you taking punting away from Kirk Ferentz. It's like you left him nothing. Right. It's like, yeah, okay, so this is a thorough deconstruction. Mm-hmm. But yeah, congratulations. Next up is Georgia. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm gonna just be happy that the season went the way that it did. I did not expect this going into the season. I don't think anyone outside of that locker room did. It's been, you can't really call it a Cinderella season because it's Michigan, right? But at the same time, I think this is probably the closest to a Cinderella season that Michigan football can have. So they've surprised before. Maybe they'll surprise again. But I think hopefully this is just the first step in Jim Harbaugh finally righting the ship for Michigan football.
Well, of course, I hope that's not the case, but I am very happy for you.
I appreciate it.
So, Ben, now it's time to talk about the Pistons, sadly. Normally we end with the schedule, but I wanted to start with the schedule because that's the most hopeful thing we can talk about so far this week. The Pistons are currently on an 8-game losing streak, but they have an extremely eminently winnable game against the Oklahoma City Thunder tomorrow on Monday. But then it's Washington at New Orleans, which is also picking up steam after a rough start, and then the Brooklyn Nets. Ben, how important is it for this team to get this win on Monday?
Yeah, I mean, short term, I think this feels like a game you want to win, and you want to win it really, really bad. You know, long term, does it matter if the Pistons win their 5th game Monday or not? No. But short term, for morale, for attitudes, which, you know, remarkably, Dwayne Casey in his time with the Pistons has done a really fantastic job, of keeping spirits up, of minimizing drama, controlling personalities and all that kind of good stuff. But look, I've been on winning teams, I've been on losing teams, and when you when you lose 8 in a row, you just want to win. You just want to win so badly. So, I hope Oklahoma City is the win. New Orleans, the last I heard about Zion was that he was just re-entering like 4-on-4, 5-on-5 stuff, so I don't know if he'll be expected to be back. New Orleans could potentially be another win as well. 2 wins in the same week would feel, I think, like a huge victory. But, yeah, let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's go ahead and get this win against Oklahoma City.
Absolutely. Did you see Oklahoma City's historic loss to the Memphis Grizzlies?
Oh, man. I did not see the game. I saw the score. I saw the lowlights and the highlights. That was ouch. That's like worse than JV and varsity, isn't it?
It was really bad. It was really bad. It was what Memphis had like 11 guys in double figures or something like that. It was incredible. That was a beatdown. But it was because Oklahoma City was missing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, their rookie Josh Giddey, and I think Lou Dort. And so if none of those guys also play against the Pistons, I will feel much better about the Pistons taking that game. But that is to say that like the Thunder are in a very liminal place right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Pistons were able to take that game. Last I had heard about Zion, he had just suffered a setback, I think, in his recovery. And so, but like not a super serious one, but I truly doubt that he will be available for this week's game. But yeah, this is I hate to call any game in December like a must win, right? Especially for a team we expect to be at the bottom of the standings, like you pointed out. But yeah, like this season was supposed to go poorly, but they were also supposed to avoid these type of like long losing streaks especially after like integrating Cade fully into the lineup and into the rotation. We looked at the schedule like 2 weeks ago. We knew this West Coast road trip was going to be really tough. It has been. The Pistons have played. They played poorly in some of these games, but they haven't played like awfully. But they also like haven't been competitive for the last couple of games, and it's just been a rough sight to see. The one shining spot though has been Cade Cunningham. The play of Cade Cunningham this week has been exceptional. He had a career night against Portland. I think he had a career high 26 points. He's averaging over 20 points and over 50% from three this week. Ben, last week we talked about the shot profile, the concern about the shooting. It was like this week he shoots 50% from three. We can't complain. But the thing we can complain about a little bit are the turnovers. He had 5 turnovers against Phoenix, 6 turnovers against Portland, and 5 turnovers against the Lakers in that second game. And I think he only averaged like less than 3 assists this week. The low assists are not always his fault, but still kind of a bummer. So Ben, what did you make of like the good and the bad we're seeing of Cade Cunningham this week?
Yeah, the big positive, obviously the shooting, and obviously, to me, this just felt super timely. It was, from a fan perspective, I think everyone is just begging those 3-point shots, willing them into the basket. Very timely to see him knock down some shots, especially, after we on the podcast were a little bit critical, particularly me last week. I thought he took really good shots this week from behind the arc. I thought he did a really good job of taking shots that were in rhythm and off the pass. I really liked the way his shot looked this week when he was taking catch-and-shoot jumpers. His form off the dribble, I'm not totally sold on yet, but I thought he looked really nice in a catch-and-shoot, taking rhythm threes. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. I also liked particularly, I want to say the Portland and Phoenix games, they kind of stood out to me in terms of playing a little bit more inside out. I mean, he's still taking a lot of threes, but I like the way that he really attacked the rim and put pressure on the defense off the dribble and let those threes come off the pass instead of the dribble. I thought that was really really nice to see, probing off the dribble and then just taking the threes in rhythm. I thought that made a lot of sense. And yeah, you're right. The negative was the turnovers. They seem really sloppy and careless, though, and I'm still sort of convinced that I think this is something he can continue to course correct on, potentially even during the season. The Phoenix game, jumps out to me. Like he had this turnover where, he brought the ball up the floor, and the first pass is one he needed to make. He dribbled the ball over the wing, needed to swing the ball over to Jeremy Grant to start the action, and the defense just jumped all over the pass because it was very obvious what was going to happen. And he still threw the ball. So, those are the kinds of plays, Laz, where I look at those and think, 5-6 turnovers a game, that's terrible. Like, that's objectively really bad. He had another one in that Phoenix game where it was sort of like a slow secondary fast break, and he dribbled the ball sort of into no man's land towards short corner. 3 guys sort of grouped around him and just slapped the ball away, right? Like, those are the possessions that you can think, that is definitely going to improve. And when it does, it's going to be, obviously a very good thing for his game. So the good thing, the shooting, thank goodness the ball went through the hoop. Secondarily, I was really impressed the way he attacked the rim, particularly in that second half spurt against Phoenix where they closed the gap a little bit. And the turnovers continue to be, I think, the easiest part of his game to fix and completely normal and expected for a 20-year-old kid handling the ball in the NBA for the first time.
Yeah, I remember that turnover that you talked about, the first one, initiating the action at Jeremy Grant, because I believe it was Mikal Bridges who caused that turnover.
Yep.
And it's that's a first team, second team, all NBA defense type of guy. And it was quite a lazy pass. It's like, nope, that's a KYP. You have to know who is guarding Jeremy and what kind of person that is, what kind of defender that is, and treat them with the respect that they deserve. And you can't make that lazy a pass. And so I also remembered that one because I was like, that one won't happen next year, right? Like he will be a little bit more familiar with guys, and he'll know not to do that next time. I do wonder more about the second type of turnovers that you were talking about, the just dribbling the ball off of his foot. He has like he'll drive from the top and do like a little half spin to get a shot off, and he'll lose the ball going back on the half spin a lot. And like so much so that like I noticed it, which is like when I know like something is actually a problem, because I need to see things like 7 times before I remember them. But yeah, I think the improvement of like his handle of his dribbling ability will like that'll have to be like an off-season progression thing. But like that's a much needed step. I think will make him a more efficient player and a more a player less likely to turn the ball over. But yeah, no, overall this is a great week for Cade. What I really liked is I also liked the impetus to like get inside the arc and make stuff happen. I was a little dismayed that he was not always rewarded with free throws for that effort. But I think, that's a little bit of that is like rookie stuff. Like I think he will get more calls as stuff goes on. Another part of it is I think he doesn't like shy away from contact, but he shoots like around the rim. He shoots a lot of hook shots to make up for his lack of big elevation in traffic. And so I think if you're shooting a lot of like jump hooks over smaller guys, it's harder to get fouled on those than like if you're trying to like extend through arms and getting whacked on the arm and stuff like that. And so I'll be curious to see if that is like if that remains like a thing that he has to find more ways to take advantage of like the dark arts of foul drawing, right? As opposed to just like worrying about getting a shot blocked by NBA rotation defenders.
Yeah, and I think it was the Portland game where he took sort of like the left-handed baby hook as well. And on the one hand, that was impressive. Like to see him go to the offhand that way and finish so cleanly. On the other hand, I think you're right. Like there's an opportunity there to maybe initiate some contact and get easier buckets than the tough sort of spinning, fading left-handed baby hook.
Yeah. And a lot of those buckets came off of Killian Hayes' assists. And so that was another thing that I think I enjoyed this week was seeing the connection between Cade and Killian kind of grow. You can really see it like on the court. There's 2 tall playmakers who like know where each other are, know where their shooters are at all times. We've seen Cade hit Killian on backdoor cuts like twice this week. Once was on Russell Westbrook sleeping, and once I think was on Chris Paul sleeping. It's like that's Chris Paul's a really smart dude, but like still being able to sneak a pass by him for a layup was pretty impressive. Killian is at Cade on some open threes or some. You see Killian pushes the ball a little bit more than Cade in transition, so you'll see Killian like orchestrate a way for Cade to get like trail threes or corner threes in like semi transition. I've really liked the way that those two have played together, and it throws into stark relief like what Cade was missing when Killian was not playing. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we're seeing Cade's recent play be buoyed by like the return of Killian Hayes. What do you think of that, Ben?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment. I think Cade very likely has been by far the very best player on every single team he's played on. And so I think having another guy like Killian Hayes, who's also very good off the dribble, it's probably a learning experience for Cade, right? And I think we're starting to see just over the course of 20 or so games how some of this can come to fruition. I'm of the mind that when you have really talented players, a lot of times those talented players can overcome concerns about fit. And I think going into the season, there were some concerns shared pretty broadly that these two guys might not fit together. And I think we're starting to see that actually there's some really cool synergies that are happening. You mentioned the backdoor passing and cutting that was happening. I think that's a very obvious synergy. The other thing that I think Killian Hayes deserves a whole lot of credit for is his improved catch and shoot shooting. Whenever it comes to catch and shoot guys improving, I'm a big believer in the guys deserve the credit for putting in the reps, because the only way you get better at that kind of stuff is thousands and thousands and thousands of reps. And clearly Killian has done that, because he's become pretty deadly from the corners, which a year ago at this time, I think all of us would maybe be hoping this is a year or two away, and here he is doing it currently. So, yeah, I mean, I think they probably sort of think and see sort of the same way. They both have great vision. They both have some really good point guard instincts on offense. And I think that's turning into them finding themselves and finding each other in advantageous situations and taking advantage of that. So, amidst the losing, this is definitely a bright spot, and I think bodes well for the future, because I think they're starting to put to rest this idea that they can't and shouldn't play together.
No, absolutely. That makes me wonder, but not makes me wonder, but that was a little bit of a point of discussion. It was like Killian's improvement shooting wise, like who to attribute that to, and you were like very staunchly on the side of like, no, like shooting improvements come from within, right? Like they come from a lot of reps. Like someone can help you someone can help you like diagnose your form, but like you still have to make the necessary changes to to make your shot into a better one and make your shot like what it should be. And I thought that was an interesting discussion, but that also made me wonder what you think about the regression we're seeing from Saddiq Bey, right? Like Saddiq is turning down shots now in a way that's very disconcerting. I am officially like #worried about Saddiq. He looks indecisive. He looks caught between decisions, right? He looks like he's caught between the shot and the drive at all times. And he doesn't quite know what to do, and it's turning into passivity, right? It's turning into, let's just take 2 dribbles and like reset the offense, which is almost like worse than like not shooting the ball at all. Ben, who do we attribute like this poor run of play from Saddiq to, and like how do we make it better? Not we, but you know what I mean.
Right, I know what you mean. Les, I'm really curious to hear what you're saying as well. I've really been trying to pay attention to lots of different voices and opinions on this, because I'm really confused by this. This is a situation that I really don't feel like I have my head around. If Saddiq were struggling off the dribble, struggling off the looks that he's getting in the mid post, but still knocking down open threes, it would be really easy to say, yeah, he's just sort of struggling with taking the next step, right? He's struggling to expand his individual offense, but that's not what we're seeing, right? He's struggling individually, and he's turned into a guy, as you mentioned, who's not just missing shots, but not taking shots. And that, to me, when he started doing what you just mentioned, that to me also sort of turned from, okay, this is just a slump, to, okay, we've got a real thing here that's a little bit concerning. Here's the thing. I'm not much for like the intangibles. I'm usually not that guy. But one thing I really do believe is that players need to be confident in order to perform well. And Saddiq passing on open looks, to me, points to a lack of confidence. So the question is, from a coaching perspective, how do you, if that is the diagnosis, how do you treat that, right? There's a part of me that has wondered all season, is Saddiq just fatigued? Like, kind of by default, he plays a lot of the power forward role defensively. He's banging inside. He's hitting the defensive glass particularly hard. Is he tired? Is it sort of this progressive fatigue where by the time he gets to the place where he's taking an open jump shot, are his legs just not there because he's tired? And if that's the case, then maybe he just needs a few days off. So I've been wondering, what if you just rested him? It wasn't like a benching for poor play. It wasn't a demotion. It was communicated very clearly to him and to the public. This is not, we're not benching Saddiq. We still believe in him, etc. But we're giving him a few days to get rested. And you slide someone else into the starting lineup for a little while. My vote would be Hamidou Diallo. I feel like he's played the hardest and been the hungriest. But I don't know. What about giving Saddiq just a break? Let him reset. Let him get in the gym. Let him take, several hundred shots a day and just get him out of the game situations to get his legs back under him. So that's my best guess, Laz. But I don't know, man. What do you think?
I don't dislike it, right? I do think that there is something to confidence being a prerequisite for like good performance. And so I do think that, you need to find a way to manufacture some confidence for Saddiq. The tough part is like you would prefer to be able to do that like in game, right? Like you'd have like this is Saddiq's like set play. We get him a shot from like the right wing where he's most comfortable, and like he knocks it down, and then like we move from there. But because the problem is with this shot, like you don't want to like force feed him looks and make his confidence go even lower if he's not able to hit some of them.
Exactly.
So I don't mind the rest idea. I do think it is a good thing that the Pistons have had like 3 days off. I think 3 or 4 days off since their last game to their next one. I hope that helps. And you always feel like that exhale of relief after a long road trip coming home. And so I'm hopeful that that'll be another point in his favor. We talked a little bit about Oklahoma City and their lack of performance earlier this week. Perhaps playing him against a team that's struggling as much as Oklahoma City would also like be a good thing. That'd be a good confidence booster. But yeah, I mean, I can't say that I haven't thought about making a change to the starting lineup or making like a rotation change. So we have a front page post from Justin Lembrexi on Detroit Bad Boys like right now with like 200 comments on it that has different ways of shifting Saddiq Bey like out of the starting lineup. And so like this is absolutely a concern and something that like a lot of people have been thinking about.
Cover Story, a new investigative podcast from New York Magazine. Our first season is about a secretive underground that's about to go mainstream. Psychedelic therapy. Silicon Valley loves it, big-name universities and scientists love it, but almost no one is looking that closely at what's really about to go down. Lily, I know you left the psychedelic world, and I would love for you to talk about the moment where it went from being something safe to something treacherous and bad.
Oh boy, have you buckled your seatbelt? That was dark.
Cover Story, Season 1, Power Trip. Because it's not the drugs that are the problem, it's the people high on power. Check out Cover Story on Spotify or wherever you listen.
And the starting lineup, I don't mind Hami. I mean, Hami has played really well over the last couple of weeks, and he brings that, like we always say this, right? He brings that element of being able to pressure the rim in the half court that is not really shared anywhere else across the roster right now. But I was wondering, I was thinking more about like Frank Jackson, and that's only because we've seen Dwayne Casey pull out that look this week, right? The Cade, Killian, Frank Jackson look. And if Frank is knocking down his shots like that, that is a perfectly like fine lineup to go to. And so that is the direction I was leaning. But like I don't like, if you're gonna pull Saddiq from the starting lineup, I don't think there are any like wrong answers per se.
Yeah, from a confidence perspective, if I'm going to pull Saddiq out of the starting lineup, I'm going to rest him for a few games rather than force him to come off the bench. Mm-hmm. And obviously I don't know Saddiq as a personality, as a person. I defer to the coaches on that, but that's how I would approach it, because I think from that perspective, you're making it clear we still believe in you. We just want you to get your legs right and get rested and come back to it. Frank Jackson or Hami, those would be my top two choices, and it's sort of a 1A, 1B. The thing I like about Hami is Killian likes to run and Hami likes to run, and we don't often get to see those two playing at the same time together, right? Like we get the Corey Joseph Hami minutes, and that's like they're just push-pulling and fighting against each other. Corey just wants to slow it down and dribble the clock out, and Hami wants to run. So it's mostly a philosophical, like, do you want another shooter out there, or do you want to run? And good Lord, I just want to see the Pistons run a little.
And we saw like one singular flash of that, right, in Phoenix, where Killian had the nice outlet pass to Hami for a dunk. Yep. It's like, that could happen more often, but it just doesn't. So that's unfortunate. I do think though that you're right though. It's like if even between like Hami and Frank Jackson, like it's 1A, 1B. Like it's not that the gap between those guys' effectiveness is, they do different things, but the gap between like their overall effectiveness is so small. Like I don't think there's no like clear answer there for sure.
Yeah, that's the optimistic way. The pessimistic way is like you're shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic, right? Like it's you're gonna lose either way. So
Yeah.
just pick your poison.
But pick the way you would like to lose, right? All right, Ben. Next guy I wanted to talk about a little bit was Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant scored 34 points against Phoenix. He looked, to my eyes, more aggressive when they were having him follow a specific blueprint that they devised, like specifically for Phoenix. That blueprint was like get Jeremy Grant switched onto a smaller guy and have him back him down. Jeremy managed to shoot a bunch of free throws in that game, and I think was decisive in a way that we haven't seen him be in the past. Yeah. And so I wanted to ask you, Ben, like, is a more specific, like, game-to-game, opponent-to-opponent blueprint one way the Pistons can get more out of Jeremy Grant?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting idea. I think you're absolutely correct in your observation about the Phoenix game. I think they did a really good job of putting him into mismatches that were advantageous to him. And then Jeremy did a really good job, I think, of being extremely decisive about what he was going to do with the basketball. I think, Laz, maybe you said this a week or two ago, you don't want Jeremy overthinking things, right? Like, you want to give him the ball. And in my mind, like, I'm thinking back to all of the coaching I received in high school and college. Like, if you're dribbling more than 3 times, you're probably not accomplishing something great. So I feel like that when Jeremy Grant has the basketball. When he's dribbling 3 times or less, like, I feel like the odds of a good outcome are pretty high. If he's dribbling more than that, I'm worried that we're going to see, like, the 17-foot fadeaway, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think if you can scheme appropriately from game to game, find the mismatches that are advantageous to him, and coach him up to attack quickly, I think you can point to this Phoenix game as a very clear demonstration of how he can be extraordinarily effective offensively. And if you can get him to buy into that and let him defer all of the dribbling to Killian and Cade, I was so impressed with Jeremy. I thought, particularly the Phoenix game, if he could play, he's not going to score 30 points every night, but if he could approach the mismatches and the offense that way for the next 60 games, I mean, I would be his biggest fan. I thought he approached the game particularly well, and I hope we see more of that.
Yeah, me too. I really enjoyed the way that engagement on offense like also translated itself defensively. I felt like Jeremy was made some strides against Phoenix in that game. I do think that it's really important. It's really important for Jeremy to see the fruits of his labor that come from being a like secondary or like tertiary ball handler, right? From letting Cade and Killian do their thing with the ball and then just getting to attack, simplifying the game like in front of him and being successful doing it. I think is like the biggest thing, because you could, obviously from a coaching perspective, you could try and like simplify things for Jeremy, but if the team struggles and the ball isn't going through the rim, he's going to be like, well, like, I'm the highest paid guy on this team. They bought me here to buoy the team offensively. I'm going to try and do that, and to have success offensively so that he doesn't feel like he has to, enter takeover mode. I think like that's really important. And so you hope, Jeremy's not going to score 30 every night. Cade is not going to score like 26 every night, but you do hope that like that prioritization in the offense, like who gets to handle the ball more, you do hope like that level like does shift more towards Cade than towards Jeremy, like it has over like the last like week or so. One more guy who, I don't know, this is an up and down week for Isaiah Stewart, Ben. He had back-to-back double-doubles, which is like, that was surprising to me that I think the double-double against Portland was his first double-double of the season, which was just like a shock. And maybe more importantly, he shot a couple of mid-range jumpers against the Phoenix Suns. Ben, getting hit in the face by LeBron unlock Beef Stew's jumper?
How much should we pay LeBron to come punch everybody? I guess is the question.
It's like, should LeBron punch Saddiq?
Right. Let's square off. Right. 1v1. Let's go. Yeah. Beef Stew, a double-double, 20-ish games into the season after. For a while there last season, like he was just a double-double machine, right? Like
12 and 12 every night.
Yeah, it was just what you came to expect. I appreciated that he took some shots. I appreciated that he was opportunistic offensively. I still think there's a there offensively for Isaiah Stewart. I come back to that cross-up he had, the crossover against Joel Embiid in the Philly game early in the season. Top of the key, took it all the way to the basket and finished. I think about some of the jump shots he made, particularly last season, and this season he's been apprehensive to take them. I don't know, maybe there's a coaching mandate in place that they don't want him shooting. I'm not sure. I still think there's some offense to be unlocked, and I was really happy to see at least some glimpses of it. I hope we get more of it. He and Killian, I think, are still doing some interesting things in the pick and roll. We don't see much of it, but he's not a lob threat, obviously. But he's been sort of crafty around the rim. Like he finds ways to get his shot off, even if he can't jump over everybody and dunk it. So, encouraging week for Isaiah Stewart. I really hope, Laz, that this unlocks some of his willingness to participate in the offense and take some jump shots, because he's too young. There's still so much untapped potential there. And I really do think being a consistent double-double guy is within his realm of possibilities, but he's not going to do if he doesn't shoot the basketball once in a while, and we saw a little bit of that this week, I think.
Yeah, I think it was interesting to me the progression of the week, because when you looked at the Portland game and the Phoenix game, collectively, what Portland was doing defensively from the jump was trapping the primary ball handler, and so you would see Cade enter in these beautiful slip passes to Isaiah Stewart, with the defense scrambling to recover. And if Isaiah was willing to pull the trigger, he had open 16-footers as often as he wanted them. But he wasn't taking them. You could see him searching for dribble handoff partners along the perimeter, and that was playing into what Portland wanted to do on defense in a way that wasn't conducive to the Pistons offense. You see the next game, Phoenix is still playing in drop for the most part, but you see DeAndre Ayton also giving Isaiah Stewart the space to do things offensively to move around, and he's willing to take the jumpers this time around. And so I would be shocked if the coaches didn't show him this film and be hey, you can take these jumpers. I don't think there's a coaching mandate on what kind of shots Stewart is or isn't allowed to take. And so I think this is an Isaiah Stewart thing, not a coaching staff thing.
I agree.
And I like the fact that both of the jumpers went in. That is a good way to promote a guy taking more shots if he's making them. And I didn't even mind that they were long twos instead of threes. I don't feel the need to have Stewart try and back out to the 3-point line or only pop to the 3-point line to feel like he has to take a jumper. I want him taking jumpers where he's comfortable. I want him being a threat offensively, and if that means doing stuff he's comfortable doing offensively, and even if that stuff is inefficient, that's fine. Just they need production from that starting center role offensively, and it was good to get it this week.
Laz, while you were talking, what comes to mind is one of my all-time favorite Pistons, who unfortunately never won a championship, Antonio McDyess. He came to the Pistons post-injury, right? So he was no longer the high-flying, dunk over everybody, pick-and-roll man. But he made a living taking 16-foot jump shots, right? I feel why can't Isaiah Stewart do that, right? You don't want him shooting 10 of those a game, but if he's shooting 3 or 4, he at least becomes a threat. He creates some space, and if he's knocking down a couple of them every game, I don't know. I see only good things if he starts to do that a little bit.
I agree, and I think your other point about he's not gonna take 10 of them. It's like he isn't going to take. He's not going to hijack the offense to take a bunch of 18-footers, right? Like that's not the concern. The concern is him, hijacking the offense by not being willing to shoot, not him taking the wrong kind of shots. And so, I totally agree. I think if defenses treat him like a non-entity on offense, he should take whatever kind of shots he wants in order to get them to not do that and to, bring defenders out of the paint, to open up room for some of those like Killian and Cade backdoors we talked about earlier, to open up driving lanes for a guy like Saddiq or Jeremy, right? It's like there are ancillary knock-on effects to Stewart being willing to take these offensive jumpers in a way that benefits the other four guys on the floor. So take more shots, Isaiah, please. That was basically it for this week, Ben. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Anything I missed in this week's wrap-up?
We didn't talk about Corey Joseph too much, so maybe we could talk about him a little bit.
You want to talk about Corey Joseph?
No. I'm just kidding. No, man, I mean, this was a week where we expected to lose, and we lost. So, I mean, that's what happened. Let's go get a couple wins this week, though. I really do think it's time. I think they really have to target Oklahoma City and New Orleans. I'll just say this one more time. I really do think that confidence matters, and it's really hard to be confident when you're losing game after game after game after game. So even though the goal is not winning this season, I think they need to get a couple wins, and they need to start believing that it's possible, instead of making all of these fourth quarter runs where it doesn't come to fruition in the last 3 minutes like it did against Phoenix. So let's go get a couple wins and sort of reset things. We're 22 games in, right, Laz? I mean, we're a quarter of the way through the season. They need to see some wins. They need to start believing again. So let's go make that happen this week.
Absolutely. I will plead with Sam Presti to hold out Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for one more game, please. Ben, let the people know where they can find you, where they can find what you're working on, where they can find how you guys are celebrating Michigan's entry into the college football playoff.
You can find me at BRGulker on Twitter. We can celebrate the maize and blue. Laz, even you as a Spartans fan, you got to be hoping they beat Georgia, right?
I was so underwhelmed by Georgia's performance against Alabama on Saturday. It's like, sure, go ahead, beat Georgia. I
love it.
As a purveyor, as a person who desires chaos, I'm really rooting for Cincinnati, right? Like that's pure chaos. But yeah, no, absolutely. I will be pulling in some small way for Michigan as they go up against the Georgia Bulldogs.
So I will say that regardless of the sport, basketball, football, those are the two I follow. If there is ever an opportunity for the Big Ten to do something special on the national stage, I'm going to pull for them. So, because look, I think Michigan State benefits when the Big Ten does well. And so, look, I'll cheer for Tom Izzo and the Spartans when they're not playing Michigan. So, Laz, I'm going to challenge you. Do the same thing.
I do the same for the most part. I have exceptions. I build in exceptions. Wisconsin. I don't root for Wisconsin in basically anything because their basketball team is just like horrendous basketball to watch. And so from an entertainment perspective, I can't root for that, right? Like I can't root for games in the 50s. Like don't make me do that.
I also thought it was funny, like if you watch the pregame intros for the Michigan-Iowa game, like the best Iowa football alum they could muster was some dude in the WWE that I've never heard of. So I just thought that was funny.
Wait, who's the Michigan alum? I missed the pregame.
Charles Woodson. Charles Woodson, Hall of Famer.
Oh my God! No, Charles Woodson flying the Michigan flag along the sidelines. Like Charles, like having some modicum of like even hand. He's like, no, I refuse.
Extra at that point. I mean, you had Charles Woodson and Desmond Howard doing the pregame. It was a little too much, but I don't know, man. I'll take it.
It's like, yeah, the Iowa claims of media bias that like have some basis actually this time around.
Yeah, but then they scored 3 points, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. You need to help yourself. Okay, be honest. When they tried the halfback pass to the tight end, that went,
oh my gosh!
It's like, how nervous were you?
I was so nervous, and then obviously that didn't work out. And then the Wolverines did the same exact thing on the next possession. I think my response to that on Twitter was save that for the championship game, which of course is dreaming a little bit. But still, yeah, I was extremely nervous because Iowa pulled out all the stops on that first drive, and then from there it was just total domination.
Yeah, they really needed a touchdown on that first drive, and when they didn't get it, it was kind of over. So,
it was over.
All right, thanks everyone.
This was a great episode of the Michigan Wolverines football podcast.
Thanks for listening to our football podcast, guys. I really appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter at LazChance. That's at LazChance, where I pray that Kenneth Walker actually plays the bowl game, because that would be nice. He has zero reason to, but it would be nice if he would.
Well, how about their head coach? Oh my gosh, 10 years, $90 million or whatever it was. Wow.
Yeah, it's fine. That's not my money.
Yeah, no, I
it's
actually
not the
really
school's money either. It's the donor's money.
See, the thing is, though, I really love that because, look, from my perspective as you look at Iowa's head coach, he's been there 20 plus years or whatever. I'm a big fan of telling all of your recruits, we're committed to X, Y, or Z, right? Whatever X, Y, or Z is, you commit to that head coach and you tell everybody, this is who we're going to be, this is what we're going to do, this is what we are. So I'm actually a really big fan of that, and obviously he earned it. What a fantastic season for their football team.
Absolutely. I love the culture that Mel Tucker is building. I love the renewed focus on recruiting in a way that I felt had really slipped in the latter years under Mark D'Antonio. And I like the fact that we had a Michigan State team this year that could score 40 points. That felt good. We hadn't had that in a while. It had been some time. Yeah, we're going to start a college football podcast.
It will be if I am participating, it will be one of the least informed from an X's O's perspective as there could possibly be. But hey, we'll sing the praises of the coaching and recruiting. That's all right.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Detroit Bad Boys podcast. We really appreciate it, and we will talk to you all next week. See ya.
Cover Story, a new investigative podcast from New York Magazine. Our first season is about a secretive underground that's about to go mainstream. Psychedelic therapy. Silicon Valley loves it, big-name universities and scientists love it, but almost no one is looking that closely at what's really about to go down. Lily, I know you left the psychedelic world, and I would love for you to talk about the moment where it went from being something safe to something treacherous and bad.
Oh boy, have you buckled your seatbelt? The was dark.
Cover Story, Season 1, Power Trip. Because it's not the drugs that are the problem, it's the